Kang the Conqueror has finally made his presence felt in the MCU. So let's talk about the various ways in which Kang could, or will, introduce the nefarious Doom in the movies. I am not capable of time travel like Kang, and although that ability would be epic, I have absolutely zero insight into the future. By analyzing and reviewing the information that we do have from both the comic books and the flicks, I'm sure that together we'll be able to connect some dots and come up with a few ways that Kang could introduce Dr. Doom in the MCU. There are plenty of theories to suggest that Kang and Doom's relationship is in the works for the MCU. Deadpool 3, Fantastic Four, Avengers the Kang Dynasty, and Avengers Secret Wars. These films will cap off the Multiverse Saga, and the fact that we know they're coming and the fact that we have comic books as source material pretty much spoils the fact of all facts that Dr. Doom will be popping up somewhere in the MCU soon. What will be Doom's connection to these 4 movies, you say? Well, I'm glad you asked. We can make a connection to the Fantastic Four flick by looking at the fact that Kang the Conqueror's real name is Nathaniel Richards, who just so happens to be a blood descendant of Reed Richards from the future. Reed Richards is of course Mr. Fantastic, everyone's favorite stretchy leader of the aforementioned quartet, who hopefully won't get jobbed out so easily the next time we see him on the screen. Not only is Kang related to the Richards bloodline, but Dr. Doom has a long and personal history with Reed himself. They're arch enemies, and Doom is the primary villain that Marvel's first family spends most of their time fighting against. When Kang initially discovered time travel in the 31st century, the first person he encountered was Doom, and the two villains thought they were related. How awkward. The next movie in Phase 6, Avengers the Kang Dynasty, is pretty self-explanatory as to how it connects to Kang and his plethora of variants. As we saw during the Ant-Man and The Wasp Quantumania's mid and post-credit scenes, Immortus, the Scarlet Centurion, Rama-Tut, and everyone who's a member of the Council of Cross-Time Kangs is at play in the MCU. And speaking of Rama-Tut, coincidentally enough, the Fantastic Four's first meeting with Kang was in ancient Egypt against his Rama-Tut variant. The Pharaoh used his ultra-dioid ray gun and stripped the Fantastic Four of their powers before taking off back into the future, and then running into the X-Man Cable. Keeping all that in mind, Victor Von Doom doesn't necessarily tie into Kang's dynasty in any particular way, unless it turns out that he is another one of the Conqueror's variants too, right? Right? In the comic books, Dr. Doom plays a pivotal role in the 1984 Secret Wars and the 2015 Secret Wars. Basically, Dr. Doom steals the Beyonder's powers, transforming him into God Emperor Doom, and tries to destroy all of Earth's heroes and villains who are forced into a war on Battleworld. You know, typical Doom stuff. Kang unfortunately doesn't play a big role in Secret Wars from the comics, besides dying and being brought back to life. During the comic book series, Deadpool's Secret Wars, it's revealed that Wade Wilson and Kang fought each other. Deadpool beats Kang easily with a swift shot to the family jewels, but that's neither here nor there. Cable, Deadpool, where have I seen them in a movie jumping back and forth between timelines before? It doesn't take Tony Stark to figure out that Marvel Studios plans on capping off Kang's ultimate big bad storyline by either introducing or passing the baton on to the next overarching villain of the MCU, Dr. Doom. Deadpool 3 will be his first official MCU endeavor. Deadpool helped defeat Kang during the Secret Wars in the comics, and it's possible that he and Wolverine do so in the movies as well. But remember how I mentioned Cable before? Yeah, well, he'll more than likely be the one helping Deadpool travel into the MCU universe during Deadpool 3. This timeline merger or incursion event could be the way that the entire X-Men roster gets brought into the MCU. And in the 2015 version of the events, a conflict between the Beyonders, plural, and God Emperor Doom would see Marvel's primary 616 universe, Marvel's Ultimate 1610 universe, the futuristic 2099 universe, and the House of M 1602 universe all collide, forming one perfect universe. Whew! So, by combining key elements from different universes, in order to integrate everyone's favorite superheroes into one cohesive and canonical timeline, where physical and historical alterations to characters don't necessarily matter, Marvel Studios would be able to tie up any loose ends and silence any debates about what is and isn't canon to the MCU. That way, shows like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., the Netflix Marvelverse, the Sony Spider-Verses, and the multiple timelines from the X universe could all be merged into one perfect universe. Heck, They did it in the comics, didn't they? It's rumored that when we meet Mr. Fantastic, the Invisible Girl, the Human Torch, and the Thing in the MCU, that they'll already have their powers. It means that Doctor Doom has probably mastered his sciences and magic by the time we finally meet him as well. Another rumor is that the Fantastic Four have been flash frozen in time, or are trapped in the negative zone, while Doom has been puppeteering and manipulating things behind the scenes of the MCU during Phase 4. Although Doctor Doom has never been outright seen in the MCU, or even named for that matter, he has been somewhat ingrained or implied throughout. For instance, during Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness on Earth 838, Illuminati Reed Richards steps through what appears to be one of Doom's time platforms from the comics. Now, the time platform that Richards uses in the movie could imply one or a couple of things. One, Doom exists in this universe and had this time platform stolen or replicated by Reed Richards. Dos, Doom exists in this universe and developed his time platform with Reed Richards. Or trois, Doom does not exist in this universe and Richards invented the time platform himself. Two of those three scenarios imply that Doom at least exists in the Earth 838 universe. But regardless of the other universes, back over in the primary MCU universe, Earth 616, there is evidence that Victor Von Doom has been a player this whole time. During Black Panther Wakanda Forever, Riri Williams drops an eerie line about a mysterious MIT professor who gave the vibranium detector that she built to the CIA. We all assumed this was a reference to Doctor Doom, as it was leaked before the movie's release that apparently Doom was going to appear in the post-credit scene. Well, there was no appearance of Doom in the mid or post-credit scene. Fans are positive that Marvel simply removed the scene because of the aforementioned leaks. This is all speculative, but Black Panther 2 did feel like there was a gaping plot hole, with this random professor never being called back to or named in any way before the conclusion of the film. Another small tease that could also be confirmation of Doom's existence in the main timeline of the MCU was seen during the Moon Knight series. In one scene, Mark Spector is driving a delivery truck, and a box placed behind him reads Von D and is cut off there. People have tried to debunk this box as having nothing to do with Victor Von Doom, but you know as well as I do that Marvel can and have retconned minor details in hindsight before. Is Doctor Doom pulling strings behind the curtains in the MCU? Could Doom end up being revealed as the true villain behind the Secret Wars? Or is it possible that Kang has already met Doctor Doom somewhere in this timeline or the next? One of my personal theories that ties up everything I've discussed until this point into a pretty little bow is that Kang has already met and knows Doctor Doom, as well as the Fantastic Four. The reason we haven't encountered these characters on Earth 616 yet is because they've already threatened Kang in the past, and so the Conqueror sent them all back in time to ancient Egypt, where Rama-Tut used his ultra-dioid ray gun to steal their powers, rendering them incapable of returning to their timeline. During the MCU's Fantastic Four movie, in order to stop Rama-Tut and return home, the four heroes will agree to help get Doom's powers back, along with their own. This is where Rama-Tut takes off into the future, running into Cable and Deadpool just like in the comics with a few minor tweaks. Doom will double-cross the Fantastic Four, of course, and head to a different point in time than agreed upon. The four will heroically follow Doom to wherever he ends up, which will be present-day MCU, and possibly smack dab in the middle of Battleworld and the Secret Wars. Instead of another origin story about the Fantastic Four garnering powers that they struggled to accept, their first story in the MCU will be about them regaining powers that they're already comfortable with. I either just wrote the movie for them or am totally off base. In the comics, Nathaniel Richards, or Kang, of Earth 6311 is known as Prime Kang. He's the Kang that conquers all of the other Kangs, who masters his destiny and poses the greatest threat to the multiverse. In the MCU, it's unclear thus far which version of Kang is Prime Kang, or if we've even met him yet. Prime Kang could be the Kang that Ant-Man defeated at the end of Quantumania. Alternatively, he could be one of the Kang variants that we saw in the Council of Time Kangs during the mid-credits scene. What if Prime Kang wasn't a clear-cut Kang, but was altered to fit the MCU's narrative? Something I mentioned earlier that they do with characters all the time. What if Prime Kang turns out to be Doctor Doom and Doom traveled back in time as Nathaniel Richards of Earth 616? Although that seems highly unlikely and like a complete waste of Doctor Doom, there is a version of Kang Doom that exists in an alternate universe of the comics called Doom the Annihilating Conqueror. Even though that sounds totally badass, I really don't think that Kang and Doom will end up being the same character in the MCU at all. One of the more popular theories circulating among fans imply that the final Kang that the Avengers will face could actually be an amalgamation of Kang and a character even more powerful than Doctor Doom, the Beyonder. Remember at the end of Quantumania when Scott Lang comes to the realization that he doesn't actually know for sure if the Kang he fought is dead or not? One theory floating around is that the first Kang we met didn't actually die, and that he simply shrunk down even further beyond the quantum realm, beyond any conceivable dimension in the multiverse. OG Kang will eventually return as the Beyonder himself during Secret Wars. This would place whichever Kang is revealed to be Prime Kang at odds with his own ultimate goal. The revelation of any entity existing beyond what Prime Kang is even capable of understanding would be an ideal way to stifle the villain's personal plans of multiversal domination. I'm not sure how fans would react to a beloved character like the Beyonder being altered from the comics into a Kang variant for the MCU. Whether the Beyonder is just a Beyonder or is an evolved variant of Kang, it's likely that Doctor Doom will end up being the final boss when all is said and done. Assuming the cinematic universe borrows from either Secret Wars events from the comics or combines them both, Doom will more than likely swoop in at the last second and steal the Beyonder's powers, whoever the Beyonder is. And that, my friends, brings us to the final theory of this video, which involves one of Kang's variants, that for once isn't a maniacal supervillain. Ultimately, whatever happens after the Secret Wars, the outcome will be Iron Lad and the Young Avengers. Marvel Studios is clearly building towards the Young Avengers, and they've introduced almost every member of the team from the comics in the MCU already. Kate Bishop, Stinger, America Chavez, Speed, Wiccan, Eli Bradley, Kid Loki, Jonas, and Scar have all been seen. As I'm sure you already know, Iron Lad is the leader of the Young Avengers in the comics, and he also happens to be a teenage variant of Kang. Do you remember at the end of Thor Love and Thunder when Thor and Gore the God Butcher reach eternity, and Gore sacrifices himself in exchange for the reincarnation of his daughter Love? I predict that when faced with the reality of the Beyonder and existence exceeding the comprehension of the multiverse, something that Kang the Conqueror has spent infinite eternities mastering, Prime Kang will realize that his efforts were futile and essentially meaningless. Prime Kang will sacrifice himself in order to save the multiverse from the Beyonder or God Emperor Doom, much like Iron Man did to save the universe from Thanos. And in doing so, Kang will be reincarnated as a young Nathaniel Richards, aka Iron Lad. Key factors from each universe will merge into one perfect timeline, and it will all come full circle, starting over again, only slightly different. Remember during the Loki series, He Who Remains explained that no matter what happens, it will always come back to him sitting at the end of time and space, attempting to preserve the sacred timeline. So as much as Secret Wars will serve as an ending to the Multiverse Saga, it will also serve as the beginning to the new Marvel Cinematic Universe. It's good to remind ourselves that the simplest answer is usually the correct answer. And although we could sit here together all day speculating about Kang the Conqueror's relationship with Doctor Doom, the most obvious route the MCU will take is probably much more simpler than we're making it out to be. The Kang Dynasty film will probably end with every Kang being destroyed by the Avengers, with the exception of one, that being the MCU's Prime Kang. Instead of Doctor Doom being shoehorned into things, Kang will probably become the God Emperor of Battleworld. Anything more complex than this might be far too esoteric for the average moviegoer, as the whole alternate timeline, multiversal, quantum stuff is already complex enough. You probably will get Doctor Doom teased in the Fantastic Four movie and then revealed in full by the end of, or even after, Secret Wars. Plus, the Living Tribunal has been teased a bunch of times in the MCU, which hasn't been paid off yet. I'm sure Kang will simply end up facing judgment from the Tribunal, who will then help restore the multiverse, or something like that. And there you have it! That's how Kang will introduce Doom in the MCU. Tell us any theories you have in the comments section below, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss any time-conquering comic content.